Okay, everybody. Factors affecting attraction. The second point in relationships. Bit of a heifer. Bit of a heifer. There's quite a lot of points to be going through today. So we're going to first look at self-disclosure, which is a pretty big factor that affects attraction. Physical attractiveness, which we have already kind of covered, but going to a bit further, the matching hypothesis, and then the pretty key theory of the filter theory, which we are going to go through. So, what we mean when we're talking about factors affecting attraction are really the the factors that go beyond that initial look across a dance floor kind of thing, right? So clearly physical attraction is quite important and we will be covering that. But what we're talking about are just things that are going to deepen that level of attractiveness to a deeper level rather than just thinking they're peng. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is self-disclosure, right? So what we mean by self-disclosure, it's essentially when we reveal information about ourselves. Now, this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense of when you tell someone something special about yourself and you expose a vulnerability, you show that, you have you know, not secrets, but, you you drop your guard a little bit around someone, that other person is going to feel very special, is going to feel very wanted, and thus is then going to probably reciprocate that self-disclosure. So the kind of idea is that you disclose information to a new partner. Now, everyone who is in a relationship, which for some reason in my classes is hardly anybody, I tend to teach a very lonely lot of people, but anyone who's been in a long-term relationship with someone will know that early on there is usually a night that you stay up all night talking to each other, and actually you start to realize that you like this person on a much deeper level. And that usually coincides with this idea about self-disclosure, when we really start to expose our vulnerabilities and our worries, our concerns. We talk about our history, for example, to this new person. Our partner thinks we must like them because we're revealing information, and then that in turn means that the partner will reciprocate. They will reciprocate, and then they'll disclose information, and thus it is this cycle that goes round and round and round. Now, self-disclosure is thought to create a sense of trust, because somebody is telling us something personal about themselves, and we really like that. And it's Altman and Taylor who believe that actually, if you get self-disclosures right, it can be really, really beneficial to creating a solid foundation, but you have to get the self-disclosures right. So some of you may think, oh, okay, so on a first date, if I just tell them loads of personal shit about myself, they're going to really like me. No, under no circumstances should you do that. That's going to put them off. They're not going to feel special, for example. So the self-disclosure is a balancing act. I had a girlfriend a few years ago who didn't self-disclose anything, for example. Very, very shut off, very closed book, for example, and that was frustrating. So self-disclosures, you kind of have to have a balancing act to them. Some people are just better at it than others. But there's four things that are going to determine whether or not a self-disclosure is actually effectively done. So as it says at the top, self-disclosure is not always effective in facilitating trust, and it depends on the following four factors. Now, these should be in your work, but if not, make room for them. But the first one is, how appropriate is the self-disclosure? So disclosing personal information at inappropriate times would not be helpful, i.e., disclosing highly personal information on the first date. Now, are there any times in which disclosing personal stuff about yourself on a first date would be appropriate? Yeah, sometimes, right? So don't take this the wrong way, but I think you're not really. Most of you don't date, right? In the sense of you meet somebody new for the first time over drinks and then you get to know each other. All of the people that you're in relationships with are generally people that you know anyway, right? So when you get to university or maybe beyond that, you will start to date random people. And what will be really interesting, I think, for a lot of you is this idea of, I don't really want to go into this in too much detail, but I tell you what, I'm just going to keep it. I'm just going to keep it. We'll save that for virtual relationships. So the first thing is I've just wasted 30 seconds of your time there. Appropriateness of self-disclosure. The other one of the more important factors here, and this is slightly different, is the attribution you give to that disclosure. So if you feel like the person telling you something, they do this to everybody, for example. They say all of this to everyone on a first date. You are not going to feel special. So with self-disclosures, you have to be given the feeling that this person doesn't tell this to many people, and therefore you're going to feel quite special. Conversely, and this is the whole F-boy thing, if a very private individual opens up to us, someone who's maybe guarded, someone who we think doesn't tell this to a lot of people. This is why F-boys, duck boys, if you will, heterosexually, girls like this type of individual, some girls like this type of individual, because this person's not really known to open up and expose their vulnerabilities to people. So when they do, you put up to me, he loves me. So that's the second one. Gender differences. Now, are there any gender differences between males and females? Absolutely. Let me ask you, who do you think care more about the revealing of personal information, males or females? It quite clearly is females. Females are regarded as much more interested in personal information, so are likely going to be attracted to men who make personal disclosures. Guys who guard themselves off, guys who don't really tell anyone anything personal about themselves, would not be seen as an attractive option to the vast majority of men or women. So, guys, make sure you are actually. Nope, I was going to say make sure you're exposing yourselves. No, definitely no. I can phrase that a little bit better. Make sure you are opening up, especially in the early parts of a relationship, right? You're not a closed book. You're not an island. Don't think you are. And the fourth and final one is the content of the disclosures. Again, this is really important. This has to be done at the right level. It's not just the right time, it's the right level. So if, for example, someone comes to you and says, look, I've had a fantastic first date. I really feel like I've connected with you. So I'm going to tell you this. I've never told anybody before. Okay, I like the colour purple, right? That's not a good disclosure, right? Whereas, and that you would argue is too low a disclosure. You can get too high. So if you say something that's too personal or too much, i.e. you've murdered someone or you're, I don't know, you get aroused at the thought of violence. I don't know why that thought came to my mind, to be honest. Then you probably want to hold that back until at least the third date. I had a friend who no, I'm not going to tell you that. I can't tell you that. It's this. No, we're not at the right time for me to disclose that information. So those are the four aspects of self-disclosure, right? I would argue that these three things just here are things that you would make a disclosure about, particularly traumatic childhood experience, maybe bad mental health, previous romantic relationships. Never say anything about that on the first date, by the way, because nothing screams I still love my ex-partner than talking about them on the first date, even if you are, I don't know, slagging them off or something. So all of those three things have a level and an appropriateness and a right time to talk about them. So it takes a long time to get to know someone, and some parts may be initially held back, but trust and respect starts to be built from these self-disclosures. So self-disclosures is seen as a really, really key part of early relationship, and it takes it from just the physical attractiveness down to the personality attractiveness, if you will. So self-disclosure is quite important, but we need to look at some research into it. So there's Kleinke and Kaito here. Kleinke, now none of these are named, so you only need to know what they found. Can you use other pieces of research? Are there other pieces of research in your workbook? Yes, probably, but what I would say here, it's quite important for second year, if you feel like the Kleinke piece of research would be better or more memorable, for example, cross out the stuff that's in the workbook, unless you want to look for that piece of research as well. So Kleinke found that individuals who are perceived as more selective about who they disclose to were seen as more attractive. So if you're not telling everybody everything. So again, just a little bit more information. But here's an interesting thing is what Kaito looked at, and this is what you need to start thinking about with more and more certainty. Is it the same across the world? Is self-disclosure the same across the world, or is it just a Western idea? Now, Kaito looked at possible differences between Japanese and American students and found that self-disclosure was higher in both cultural groups in romantic relationships compared to same-sex, suggesting that basically self-disclosure across the world, across different cultures, does seem to be quite an important factor. You might say that's common sense, but let me ask you, does it make sense that some cultures might get weirded out? They may get weirded out by you telling someone you find attractive personal things about yourself. I think there are some cultures out there, Kaito did not find them, suggesting that actually self-disclosure is a universal behavior. Now, in terms of evaluations, I do love this quote from Jane Austen. I'm not really I know I've got books behind me, but I've never really read any Jane Austen. This quote is brilliant though because it sums it up perfectly. There's a party going on across the road, and I don't know if you can hear that stupid girl blowing that stupid piss off. Anyway, so I've got a banging headache. I'm so sorry. Good quote here. There is safety in reserve, but no attraction. One cannot love a reserved person. What good old Jane is saying there is actually, if you want to be loved, you're going to have to take a risk. You're going to have to tell someone something personal about yourself. One cannot love a reserved person. But let's have a look at some evaluations. What is the difference between romantic relationships and friendships? This is an under-researched piece of. This is an under-researched field. So, surely you have had to self-disclose to your friends, and if so, is there any difference? So, one evaluation you could write here is there's not much research into the difference between self-disclosures in friendship compared to your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, friend. So. It's also unlikely that self-disclosure by itself determines attraction. What you could argue here is self-disclosure by itself is a partial explanation for attraction. It does not explain attraction by itself, but you could say actually it's a partial explanation, as part of a wider set of things that we find attractive. Just because you tell someone that you put a hamster in a ball and rolled it down from the top of the stairs as a kid, and the hamster died, and you were really traumatized about it, does not mean they're actually going to love you. There are other factors involved here, and for example, personality. So it doesn't really go into personality at all. So surely we love people for their personality a little bit more. So again, more research probably has to take place here. I might come back to this question here, but I am basically going to make you do this question at some point. Teddy is discussing his girlfriend Sasha. He says we were in the same year at university, both studying marketing. She was really good at the theoretical side and I was better when it came to the practical work, but we specialise in different areas now. I'm always proud to be seen out with Sasha. Other guys are really jealous when they see her. ... Self-disclosure. Now, we tell each other everything though. No secrets in our relationship. That bottom kind of 10 words or so, 12 words is self-disclosure. The rest is what we're going to cover in a minute. So look at her. So the other thing I want to talk about here is physical attractiveness. Now we haven't really looked at this in terms of 0 to 7 waist hit ratio, but I also want to talk about the matching hypothesis. Now, Taylor Swift, as we can all agree, is attractive. I will not have it be said that she isn't. But let's be honest. Physical attractiveness does play a role in attraction, even if it's just the very, very early beginnings. We cannot deny that it isn't important. Clearly, physical. No one approaches someone they consider unattractive with a view to trying to get with them. For the most part, that's true. By the way, there are times which I'm going to. And here's an interesting thing. Psychology tends to find that people are actually quite atrocious at guessing their own attractiveness. Your face is probably the face you've seen the most throughout your whole life. Yet, well, certainly if you look at yourself in the mirror as much as I do, but yet we're not very good at determining our attractiveness. Yet we are good at determining other people's attractiveness in the sense we have a reliable interpretation of attractiveness. We all agree consistently what is attractive. Some people say that Scarlett Johansson isn't attractive, and these people are just I don't have the time for them, to be perfectly honest with you. But the vast majority of people do agree that Scarlett Johansson is actually quite attractive. The vast majority of people agree that Chris Hemsworth is attractive, for example. Only people that are lying to themselves are lying. So there's a small bit there, but I'm not going to go into. A good term here, actually, for physical attractiveness, because there is obviously an evolutionary part here. Why? What is the evolutionary purpose for physical attractiveness? If you have a symmetrical face, that takes a lot of genetic power, known as genetic superiority, or genetic power would be less offensive. So actually, people who are attractive are seen as not genetically superior, because we're going down the whole Adolf Hitler role there, but basically it takes a lot of genetic power to be able to do that. Signs of fertility in women are an hourglass figure, slim but not too slim, 0.7 waist hip ratio. But there are differences. So in the last video, you may have seen me talk about the Michael, my Fijian friend, being attractive to people who are a lot bigger. So clearly, that is not just genetic. There are some cultural powers to what we find attractive. Now, I always ask students if this man is attractive, the one on the right, as in the picture. No, not that that'd be weird, but this person here, not that person. Now, it always splits the class, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, take a step back. Let's get rid of the dog, right? Let's get rid of the pretentious hood, right? Let's imagine this person. Let's imagine you're attracted to men, and this person comes up to you in the club, and is not arrogant. He's not up himself like he does seem in this photo. Would you find this person attractive? I think the vast majority of you, even though a lot of you are tempted to go, no, I wouldn't. No, I can get someone better. No, you can't. No, just look in the mirror. No, you can't. Sorry, that was way too offensive, wasn't it? I need to forget sometimes I'm not entirely speaking to my class. I would say that this person is physically attractive, right? And I'm not attracted to men, but I would say that this person is physically attractive. The dog really does harm his image a little bit, to be honest, right? But the point I'm trying to say here is that we'll generally agree on what is attractive. And this kind of does have an effect on what's called the halo effect. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The halo effect is when we think, in a roundabout way, attractive people have attractive personalities. And they're good people. Good-looking people are good people. And it's a bias that we have. Now, this does have a lot of consequences. If a attractive person ends up in court, they are much, much more likely going to get acquitted and get off from being convicted. Whereas if you are unattractive, you are much more likely going to. I've got some stats as what I call the rule of 22. you're much more likely going to get sent down, right? So physical attractiveness is typically the first thing we see in a partner. Their personality then has to be suitable. We think attractive people have attractive personalities. So what I sometimes say to students is I want you to consider which one of these is more likely going to commit a crime, in particular a robbery. Now, clearly, this is a leading question because the answer is so obvious. It's the person on the right-hand side. Apologies if you are watching. I did once have a student a couple of years ago who was looking at the slide in the lesson for about 5 minutes, and then she burst out laughing. Nicole, I'm going to name her actually. I won't give you her surname, but she burst out laughing because she thought for 5 minutes that this was me, and I've never been able to get through this slide without that painful memory coming back. Clearly, the person on the left is not likely going to commit a crime when compared to Burberry Man, shall we call him. So you've just made a judgment based on the physical attractiveness of someone. You may be a part of a jury at one point, so that should be worth bearing in mind. Now, all three of these, I would say, are attractive. Come on, let's be honest. You're going to get some people in the class that's like, no, it's not attractive. But generally speaking, I think we would all agree that I think she looks like Megan Fox personally. This person, I can't remember what his name is. But he got sent down, I think, for armed robbery. He's American. He got sent down for armed robbery, and you had a lot of very concerning people on Facebook, like who were typically like 50-year-old mums and things like that, being like, "Oh, he could lock me up anytime." Oh, bloody hell. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from that. I don't know what she did, but yeah, she is attractive. So the problem is that it leads to much reduced crime. Attractive people are much more likely going to get off a conviction, and when they are convicted, by the way, they are much more likely going to get a light sentence. His name is on the tip of my mind. He did armed robbery. He did get convicted, but his sentence was notoriously light. During prison, he got offered a model contract, and of which he, I believe, is out on prison now, and he is a model, and presumably doesn't need a gun to hold up a store. So it pays to be beautiful, right? It does pay to be beautiful, or so I'm told. So the matching, rest in peace. The matching hypothesis is one of these theories that kind of goes on this idea about physical attractiveness. Now, if you're in a relationship, I'm going to ask you if you believe you are of an equal, more or less attractiveness than your partner. Most of you go, yeah, my boyfriend, my girlfriend is much more beautiful than I am. And everyone in the class is going to know that you're lying and you don't really mean that. So the matching hypothesis is the hypothesis that people will generally only get with people of an equal attractiveness to themselves. It doesn't make sense to punch above your weight. It doesn't make sense. So let's go with why. If you are with someone who is more attractive than you, you are going to worry that they are going to cheat on you. You're going to be anxious. And eventually, by the way, they are going to leave you for someone who is more attractive, because at some point they're going to think, well, I can clearly do better. If you are with someone who is less attractive than you, that is exactly what you're going to think. You're going to think, why am I giving myself a bad deal here? I can get with someone who's more attractive. And the second that someone does come along who is more attractive, you will drop your ugly partner like they're hot, which they're not, because you're getting them sacked off in the first place for someone who is actually hot, who you're not dropping, you're picking them up. There we go. Nailed it. We want to be with someone who is of an equal attractiveness to us. I would say that me and my current partner are relatively of the same attractiveness. Relatively. I'm probably slightly better, to be honest with you. Probably slightly better. She's downstairs, though. I shouldn't say that too loudly. So, a bit more research into this, right? I'm just going to put these up. I'm not going to go through these because you can read them yourselves. So you may want to pause the video. But again, we've looked at research into self-disclosure. This is research into physical attractiveness. And what we're also going to look for in a minute is filter theory. I do want to highlight Gunnell and Cece's research down the bottom, though, because this is what I meant about the rule of 22. I call it the rule of 22. By the way, please don't talk about the rule of 23 in the exam, because the examiner's not going to have a freaking clue what you're talking about. But we're supposed to have a justice system, right? Take the first four letters. A justice system that is just, that is fair. But if you are less attractive than the average person, you are 22 times more likely going to be convicted in court just because you are ugly. As if being ugly wasn't bad enough. As if being unattractive, you maybe got bullied at school, for example, or maybe you've had, maybe you're self-conscious or something. As if being unattractive is not bad enough, you are much more likely going to get convicted. And this is the thing that blows my mind, they're also going to get a prison sentence that on average was 22 months longer. That's the entire length of your A level. Is 22 months, pretty much. That's the entire length of your A level added on to your sentence just because you are ugly. Phenomenal. It's phenomenally offensive. So this is the halo effect. We do not jail attractive people because we think, they probably didn't do it, and if they indisputably did do it, we go, well, we'll just give them a slap on the wrist. So bad. Please, none of you end up in court. Please. Now, okay, right. Let's just try focus on the quote down the bottom. No matter what anyone says, relationships are based on physical attraction. Now, if I could draw your eyes back to the photo, the woman on the left was, because she's dead now, Anna Nicole Smith. I think that's her name. Ex-Playboy bunny. The person on the right, who it may not surprise you, is also dead, was her husband. And he was rich. Right. I think he was like a property magnate or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was big business, basically. It earned a lot of money in his life. I think we can probably agree that she is in that relationship for something other than physical attractiveness, which leads me to the point, and maybe you find that quite disrespectful, but I would like to hear your arguments against. Clearly, there must be something other than physical attractiveness. So whilst physical beauty is important, there are other factors in play here. Wealth is a big one. Domestic skill, sexual skill, if you want, the ability, cooking ability, for example, men and women, by the way. So clearly there are some other factors. So again, physical attractiveness is only part of the story of attraction. In some cultures, other members of the family are seen as better judges, such as arranged marriages. So arranged marriages have got nothing to do with physical attractiveness. You may not even find your newfound bride or husband or groom, sorry, that's the word, you may not find them attractive. But yet, arranged marriages aren't significantly different than physical attractiveness marriages, for want of a better phrase, like Western marriages. They're not significantly different in terms of divorce rates or happiness or contentedness or things like that. So clearly, physical attractiveness, there are some arguments against it. Now, I want to go into the last theory that we're looking at here. So we're going on quite a while. I really like the filter theory. The filter theory is the concept that society filters down potential mates and narrows your options. So if I click on Southampton, and let's see, can I? Yes, I can click on that. I didn't want to give away where I lived. Just going to zoom in. Let's say you are from the Shirley area of Southampton, right? So we'll zoom into the Shirley area. society is filtering down who you may come across in real life. If you grew up in Shirley, as I did, you're only ever going to come across people from Shirley. You're not going to magically meet someone from Hamble, for example, just strolling through Shirley, because society filters them out. So the filter theory of attraction is the idea that society will take, I don't know, the 70,000 people from Shirley that live in there, for example, and they will filter them down. Sorry, I thought there was going to be a child running up here then. Not a random child. My niece is over. So there are 3 levels that you need to work on. And this is the first level. So society will filter out a lot of specific people to you. And you will be left with people with similar demographics to yourself. So where you live and where you work, any religious groups or gym members or educational economic backgrounds. Everyone else who is different to you will be filtered out. So, for example, I'm not likely going to meet somebody who works in insurance because they're being filtered out from me. Whereas I might meet somebody at work, for example. I'm not going through that. I might meet people at other colleges at like a conference. I might meet someone at my gym. I'm much more likely going to meet somebody at my gym than the next local gym, because society is filtering out those people from me. So I hope that makes sense. So the first level is social demographic variables, right? Anyone who doesn't match yours will be filtered out. Now, the next stage is similarity in attitudes. Society is going to largely filter out people who have different attitudes to me, for example. So let me give you an example. I may, at the time of filming, we're going through the cost of living crisis. For you watching in a couple of years, maybe, and hopefully it was just a distant memory. Or maybe we're still living through this true shitstorm. But I may get so angry at the government that I may go to London and protest and join a protest. There may be a female next to me who's by herself, and I'm by myself, and we're protesting, holding up banners, shouting and screaming, down with the Tories or something like that. All of a sudden, society has brought us together. All of a sudden, society has got 2 people who don't like the Tories, for example, in this particular case, and they've brought them together, and we have similar attitudes. Who are being filtered out from me are people who like the Tories, who are not likely going to be on that march. So again, it's society filtering down people. The last one is complementarity, and this is a little bit different, but it's the idea of your strengths complementing your partner's weaknesses. So the individual meets the partner's needs, especially emotional ones, and this is quite important moving forward. So a good example I always talk about here is you okay, Summer? Come in here.
Look at my nails.
Oh, let's look at your nails.
Hey.
Come here.
It's my nails.
Oh, do you want to show my students your nails?
Yeah.
Do you want to turn it around? Turn it around. I don't know if you can turn it around. Oh, you can't see. There you go. There you go. Say hello to my students. Give them a little wave. There you go.
Baby.
Right, you're going to go downstairs. I'll be down in a second.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
There we go. I'll be down in a second, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Exercise.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye. I'll be down. Hold on a second. Anyway, so where were we? A good example is your strengths matching their weaknesses. So a good example is I'm quite a good tidier, or at least I think I'm a very good tidier. I'm a rubbish cleaner. I hate cleaning stuff, like the bathroom, for example. Who likes that? Whereas, like a partner, for example, may be the opposite. Or maybe in terms of emotional needs, maybe your partner is very emotional, but you are very good at providing emotional care, and therefore that matches. So again, it's going to filter out people who are not particularly good. Now, at its core, that is the filter theory. You do need a piece of research here, and again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I find both of these pieces of research quite interesting. Festinger's is important, but I'm a bit wary of time, so I want to go into Taylor's. Taylor found that 85% of Americans got married to someone in their own ethnicity. That was because in 2008, before the internet, social media, Tinder, Bumble, etc., society filtered out people who were not your ethnicity. Society was kind of keeping you kind of ethnically isolated, if you will. So, for example, back in 2008, I may have actually found it hard to meet somebody who was not my ethnicity because we might not have gone to the same places. We may not have had the same opportunities, for example. We may not run in the same circles. But that's no longer the case anyway. So Taylor is evidence for the filter theory because it suggests, and note this down, added on Taylor, it suggests that actually society was keeping ethnicities with their own ethnicities, if that makes sense. Okay, fine. Evaluations. Measuring by ethnicities. Okay, I'm not going to go through that point. Age is not really considered. Age is not really a factor that's considered by the filter theory, but you would argue that society does filter out all the, I don't know, say I wanted to get with a 45-year-old, for example. Well, society does kind of filter them out from me. I don't know where I would meet a 45-year-old. You're not going to find any in, like, for example, how could I play football. You don't really get 45-year-old women playing five-a-side. Not really. I mean, I'm sure you do. I'm sure there are some people, but I don't ever come across them. Although I do work with people. Yeah, anyway, not the point. But age is not really an important. The important one here, and I don't know if it is, and this is a crucial point, dating apps destroy the filter theory. Dating apps destroy the filter theory. Remember what I said? Society filters you down. If I'm growing up in Shirley, then this whole screen is probably where I'm likely going to meet my partner because society is filtering everything down. I get on a dating app. I set my radius to 30 miles. And let me just zoom out, show you what a roughly 30 miles looks like. That's about 30 miles. That's about a 30-mile radius. I've gone from Shirley, just having access to people in Shirley, which, you know, I'm right, thanks. To having a 30-mile radius, there are a lot of single people who I would not get access to it or not run in their circles or not come across. There's a ton of single people in this radius. If there's one good thing about dating sites or dating apps, it's the accessibility they give you to people you quite frankly never would have mentioned. Candy is a paramedic. I'm not a paramedic, so we never would have run in the same circles unless I'm having a heart attack and her face sweeps over me and starts giving me CPR, and I maybe I misinterpret signals or something, and start just kissing her back, which I'm probably not going to because I'm dying. Not the point. She's a paramedic who lived in a different part of the city to me before we met. We were never likely going to meet. Like in terms of filter theory, the filter society was filtering me and my partner apart until we got on dating apps and met that way. So that's really the big evaluation, is that the filter theory is blown out of the water by the invention and creation of modern technology. And therefore, this is the point. So I'd say here the filter theory could be regarded as outdated. What's the evidence? Dating apps like Tinder and Bumble allow for more control, blah, blah, blah. The elaboration, therefore, it's become obsolete. The theory is lacking in temporal validity. It's become quite useless, for example, because it doesn't actually match what we are, what happens in today's society. And that's pretty much it, to be perfectly honest with you. That last point is probably the most important point for filter theory. It's a really, really good point. And we'll talk about this more in lesson. But this is everything that we have looked at today. I'm hoping that if we went back to Teddy, and the question regarding Teddy is going to make a lot more sense now. Teddy is discussing his girlfriend Sasha. We were in the same year at university. Filter theory, right? You are much, much more likely going to meet somebody who's on your course, because society, if you're doing a psychology course, or in this case, marketing course, if you're doing a marketing course, then society is going to filter out everyone doing the psychology course. They'll be in a different building. The economics course, they're in a different building, for example. The business course, well, they're in a lecture theatre behind you, and not in your one, basically. She was really good at the theoretical stuff. I was better at the practical work. Complementarity. We specialise in different areas now. I'm always proud to be seen out with Sasha. Physical attractiveness. She's probably quite attractive. Other guys really jealous. We keep no secrets. Self-disclosure. That is everything for factors affecting attraction. Self-disclosure. Physical attractiveness, including the matching hypothesis, followed by the filter theory. I apologise for the 4-year-old disrupting our lesson today. I shall have a word. Peace out.